News Now is brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. From the Pacific News Center in Hagåtña, Guam, here's Clint Ridgell and Janella Carrera with Betsy Brown and Roselle Romanes. PNC Sports with Blake Watson. And weather with Joanna O. With your news now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pacific News Center. We are broadcasting live on Saipan and on Guam. I'm Clint Ridgell.
And I'm Janella Carrera. Hafa and good evening. Your top story tonight. Keith Garrido has finally pleaded guilty more than 2 years later to the murder of Nancy Muffness, but the case isn't over yet. During his plea hearing, it was revealed that a second person may be involved. It's an unexpected twist that was just uncovered a few weeks ago.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty, Mr. Garrido?
Guilt by complicity.
Every time Keith Jermaine Garrido appears in court, something new always comes up, and today was no different. After many years of staggering on a decision, Garrido finally pleaded guilty in the 2012 murder of Nancy Muffness. Garrido was indicted on charges of aggravated murder, aggravated assault, burglary, and theft of a motor vehicle. But today he pleaded guilty to 3 of the 5 charges. As part of his plea agreement, the aggravated murder charge, which would have removed Garrido's chances at parole, was dismissed. But if the Attorney General's office felt so confident before in Garrido's guilt, why did they suddenly agree to dismiss the aggravated murder charge? Why did the AG's office agree to remove the aggravated murder charge?
The agreement is for his cooperation in further investigation of this same case.
Chief Prosecutor Phil Tydinko says there was a new development in the case that just emerged a few weeks ago. It turns out there may be other people involved. If you recall, the plan was only to burglarize Muffness's home, but it was a burglary gone wrong when Muffness came home in the middle of it all. She encountered Garrido in the kitchen, and that's when Garrido bludgeoned her to death with a steel pipe.
And you do agree that he is the person who caused Nancy's death?
I will say that he helped to cause her death.
Were there other people involved?
At this time, there's still a pending investigation about that, so that's all I can say at this time.
Nancy Muffness case.
In this case.
While Tydinko was more tight-lipped about these new developments, Judge Anita Sokola, in reading the plea agreement, revealed a little more.
How do you plead to murder as a first-degree felony, guilty or not? I cannot hear you.
Guilty.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty, Mr. Garrido?
Guilt by complicity.
But are you guilty because on December 12, 2012, here on Guam, you committed the offense of guilt by complicity to commit murder, in that you, with the intention of promoting and assisting in the commission of that offense, which is murder, you induced and aided another person to commit the offense of burglary. Is that correct? Is that?
Garrido will have to serve a mandatory life sentence for the murder charge, but will be eligible for parole after 15 years. He faces up to 10 years each for the burglary and car theft charges. His sentencing has been scheduled for June 19.
As the labor dispute continues at Pacific Maritime Association docks on the West Coast, retailers on Guam are watching for any potential impact on the shipment of goods to Guam. PNC's Betsy Brown joins us with more on the situation. Betsy, we know vessel operations were suspended for a few days, but how does this affect Guam?
Well, it looks like Guam wasn't hurt by this 4-day suspension, which includes the weekend and 2 holidays, as domestic ships bound for Guam were exempted. Still, the labor disputes are concerning to retailers as they try to keep their shelves stocked. I sat down with Payless General Manager Mike Benito today to find out how the local grocery business is affected.
Guam hasn't felt any of the delays yet. We've actually been getting our containers, sometimes, a day off, but, no extended delays.
Payless General Manager Mike Benito says so far Guam hasn't felt the impact of the slowdown of shipments from the West Coast. As the Pacific Maritime Association continues contract negotiations with the International Longshore and Warehouse Union. However, Benito does expect to see some delays in future shipments.
Obviously, with what we're seeing now, that port, actually all the West Coast ports are extremely gagged. So even when this does get resolved, I'm sure there's going to be some future delays because of just the logistics of getting that product out of the port. Now, if they do have a port shutdown, a full shutdown, but then that's definitely cause for concern.
If shipments from the West Coast are halted, it's the perishable goods that the grocery chain would find most difficult to keep in stock.
If you have 1 week of shutdown or 2 weeks, we will be running out of things like your fresh produce and your chilled meats and your dairy products, your yogurts and cheeses and things of that sort.
Still, Benito says there is no need for panic buying, as many of the island's wholesale distributors keep a lot of non-perishable items on hand.
We're never going to run out of food. There's a lot of, Guam is quite prepared, and there's a lot of canned items. There's a lot of frozen beef and frozen products that I think there's probably enough residual inventory on hand that we're going to be able to maintain the certain quantities on our shelves. But I think for, if it goes 1 or 2 weeks, for the worst you'll see is probably some highly perishable items start running thin.
Benito adds that he's hopeful the labor dispute will be resolved before the union workers go on strike, but if they do, he's confident that the federal government would step in.
Thanks, Betsy. Well, following the hospitalization of 3 officers in the SWAT training program, the Guam Police Department is looking to modify training to make it less strenuous. GPD spokesman Officer AJ Balahaja updated the media today on the investigation into the SWAT program. He says during this evaluation process, they will make adjustments. For example, yesterday he says they extended indoor classroom instruction to give the trainees more time to cool off and hydrate. We'll be looking into the physical training requirements to ensure we also continue to comply with SWAT standards, he said in a press release. Meanwhile, Balahaja says the 3 trainees are still at the hospital. 1 remains in critical condition at Naval Hospital after he collapsed 2 days ago. Another officer is also at Naval Hospital for dehydration, and the 3rd officer is still being treated at Guam Memorial Hospital, also for dehydration.
The island's 4th case of pertussis in the last few weeks has been confirmed by laboratory results. The Department of Public Health and Social Services today announced that this latest case is in a 2-month-old child. Pertussis, commonly known as whooping cough, is a highly contagious bacterial disease of the respiratory tract. Unimmunized or incompletely immunized infants are the most vulnerable, according to Public Health. The disease is spread by direct contact with discharge from the nose and throat of infected individuals.
If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. That's not the case for Simon Sanchez High School students in the Guam Community College's Pro Start and Lodging Management programs who turned up the heat when they competed in a food truck contest earlier today. PNC's Rizal Romanes is so lucky. She has a story.
The food truck industry is on the rise, from taco trucks, burger stands, and poke trailers. Guess who jumped on the bandwagon? Simon Sanchez High School students in the Guam Community College Pro Start and Lodging Management programs. The students took part in a food truck competition where they were split into 5 teams, which included Pizza Cone Company, Itadakimasu, and La Patisserie. Pro Start students in each team were responsible for the menu and food preparation, while the LMP students marketed the food truck to industry professionals and school administrators.
Today we're grilling Calbee flank steak. It's been marinating for 2 days, so it tastes really good and it smells really good. You can smell.
Are you nervous for the judges to taste it?
I'm pretty confident in it.
I'm just getting all the leftovers and I'm just putting it in, and I'm making a quiche out of it. A quiche is pretty much like a breakfast pie, I would call it.
So I'm about to try their banana lumpia. Oh my god, that is good.
Thank you.
Good job.
We asked several students what they loved most about participating in the competition and being a part of the Pro Start and LMP programs.
I like this project because it gave me a realistic feeling, because I'm actually planning to go into college for marketing. So yeah, it helped me train, and I learned a lot.
Going through here for like 3 years, like at first you'll learn to love it, especially the teacher, and especially all the classmates that we have here. You'll become a family.
Different co-owner and Judge Jason Datuan says he was more than impressed with the students' work.
I enjoyed the presentation, and I can see so much talent just emerging out of Guam. I'm proud of these people. Just follow your passion and just keep driving.
The food shown looked delicious. Unfortunately, they are not actual food trucks, but simulated trucks for the students. For more information on the GCC programs, call GCC at 735-5597. Rosal Romanes, PNC News.
And the food truck competition was organized by GCC's tourism professor Eric Chong and ProStart instructor Vicky Scroggy. Scroggy tells us that the competition is also the senior capstone project for the class, and she says the purpose is to prepare students not just for the career, but for college as well.
All right, and let's check in now with someone who's been to college, surprisingly, Blake Watson with sports.
Surprisingly.
Hey, sports not too far away. Obviously, we're going to talk about baseball, but that's not it. We also have tennis as well, so don't go anywhere. Sports coming up very, very soon. You don't want to miss it. Stick around.
Hey,